Calvin Cambridge is a teenage boy who lives at Chesterfield Orphanage with his two best friends, Murph and Reg. They all enjoy playing basketball in the yard of the orphanage. One morning, while they are playing a game, a group of bullies led by Ox interrupts them. He dares Calvin to a game for his basketball jersey. Although Calvin's friends tell him to ignore the bully, Calvin wants to prove himself like his favorite basketball players do. The game starts and Ox wins easily because he is much taller. As he said he would, he takes Calvin's jersey and tears it to upset him. The director of the orphanage, Stan Bittleman, often has the kids sell candy to help raise money for themselves. That night, they go to watch the Los Angeles Knights basketball game and sell candies outside the stadium. At the end of the game, Calvin sees the Knights coach, Uyghur, getting into a car. He goes over to him and gives him some candies. When the coach learns that it's for charity, he gives Calvin a $20 bill. Calvin won't accept the money because he doubts it goes to help people in need. Uyghur, impressed by the kid's honesty, gives him 4 tickets to the next basketball game instead. Happy, Calvin runs to Murph to tell him about the tickets. The next day, some couples come to the orphanage to find a child to adopt. At first, Calvin feels hopeful, but he soon sees that the parents only want babies or little kids. Later, they are given a box of donated clothes from the secondhand store. Calvin finds a pair of shoes and puts them on. When he asks the nun about them, she tells him they belong to a well-known basketball player. Calvin looks and finds the initials M. B. Jordan is working on it. Ox gets mad about the shoes and takes them. He ties the laces together and throws them up in the air. Calvin was disappointed to see the shoes stuck on the power cable. At night, a storm comes. While everyone else is sleeping, Calvin wakes up Murph and goes to get the shoes from the wire. They go outside in the strong rain. Calvin somehow climbs a tree close to the cable. He tries to grab the shoes, but suddenly, lightning hits the tree, and Calvin falls to the ground with the shoes. Luckily, he doesn't get badly hurt. He sees that the shoes have a strange energy but doesn't pay much attention to it. The next day, the kids return to the arena to sell candies again. Calvin, Murph, and Reg receive 4 tickets as the coach promised. Ox and his friends see them and feel jealous. The bullies say they will tell Bittleman that they used the charity money to buy the tickets. To prevent any problems, Calvin gives Ox one of the tickets. The 4 of them have fun watching the game between the Knights and the Minnesota Timberwolves. During the break, the team's best player, Tracy Reynolds, and one of the coaches join a halftime show to attract more fans to the arena. One person from the crowd will have the chance to meet Tracy face-to-face. The group is surprised when Calvin's ticket number is picked for the contest. When Ox sees this, he tries to grab the ticket from Calvin. Calvin manages to fool him and rushes to the front with his ticket. Tracy doesn't worry about the match because Calvin is just a kid. He lets Calvin win the first round so the audience will be more excited. But after that, he needed to stop the kid or he would feel embarrassed. Tracy does his best, but he can't stop Calvin from making a slam dunk. The crowd is speechless and then starts cheering, while the star player feels embarrassed. The next day, the Knights coaches meet with Bittleman and ask him if Calvin can play for them for a day. At first, the director doesn't want to let him go, but he agrees when he is offered money. Calvin's friends are very happy for him. Ox is really angry. Calvin couldn't beat Ox even before he got the shoes, so the kids think the shoes are magic. They decide to keep it a secret to stop others from trying to take them, but Ox overhears their conversation. The next day, Calvin goes into the Knights' locker room, which annoys Tracy. The teammates tell Tracy to get ready because the kid is trying to take his spot. Calvin gets a Knights jersey and new shoes that he has to put on. He asks the coach if he can wear his old shoes, but the coach isn't worried about what he's wearing. Calvin is just there for show, so it doesn't really matter how well he plays. After the last game, more and more people started to like him, which has brought a bigger crowd to the arena. He can't play in the first half of the game. As the team is losing, he asks the coach to let him play. The coach is unsure but agrees to give Calvin a chance. Calvin is really nervous because he isn't wearing his lucky shoes. Everyone is annoyed when he takes a break and runs to the locker room to change into his old shoes. When he comes back, he feels much more confident. The kid helps his team score more points and win the game. After the game, he signs a deal to play with the team for the rest of the tournament. While he is in the orphanage getting ready to go, Bittleman approaches him. The man wants to keep being his guardian because it helps him financially. So, he warns Calvin to watch out for people who want to adopt him because they only want his money. On the plane, the coach puts Tracy and Calvin in the same room. Calvin is really happy to share a room with his hero, but Tracy doesn't feel the same way. At night, there is a rule that Tracy plans to ignore. He gets ready to go on a date and leaves after showing Calvin how to order food from the room service. The kid can eat wherever he likes and enjoys it a lot. When Calvin comes back with his date, the room is a mess with leftover food everywhere. He thought they would have a nice night together, but instead, they have to take care of Calvin because he is not feeling well. The boys stay up late, but Tracy finds it hard to sleep because Calvin snores. The next day, they have an important game, but Tracy is tired. Calvin accidentally tells the coach that they were up late. The coach says he will suspend Tracy if he comes home late again. From that day on, Calvin plays many games with the Knights and helps them win every one. The other teams are confused because they don't know what to expect from the kid and are amazed by how good he is. He goes to many press meetings and earns a lot of money. With the money, he buys a lot of gifts for everyone at the orphanage. He also wins the NBA slam dunk contest and becomes a very talented young basketball player. One night, Calvin is chatting with Murph about his new life and all the fun he's had playing in the NBA. A jealous ox sees them and attacks Calvin, trying to steal his shoes. The fight ends when Bittleman steps in and tells Ox off for hitting his friends. He doesn't want Calvin to get hurt because he makes a lot of money from him now. The next time the team is at a hotel, Tracy goes to the drugstore to buy sleeping pills and allergy medicine so he can sleep well before the next day's game. Calvin comes along, which annoys Tracy. On their way, the kid asks about Tracy's parents. He discovered that Tracy has a dad she doesn't talk to. This feels strange to Calvin because he wishes he had nice parents. Tracy says he doesn't want to discuss his family and continues driving. He isn't paying attention when the cashier hands him the medicine, so he accidentally grabs a sleeping pill instead of an allergy pill. Because of this, he falls asleep before he can start his car and go back to the hotel. Calvin knows that if he doesn't come home on time, Tracy will get in trouble. So he drives the car back the same way. The next morning, Tracy finds out that Calvin can't play in their next game because he stayed out late the night before. Tracy doesn't get why, but Jode asks him how he thinks Calvin got home after being out so late. Soon after, Tracy thanks Calvin for helping him not get in trouble for being out late. Tracy calls him Sea Dog, and Calvin is happy about it. The next day, while Calvin is talking to Reg about not being ready for their geometry test, he notices some couples walking around the orphanage. When Murph arrives, Calvin asks what's going on, and Murph explains that all the couples are there for his friend. Calvin thinks it's a good thing, but Murph says it doesn't help anyone else. Then, Murph walks away looking sad, and Calvin wonders why his friend feels that way. He also tells Reg that he thought Stan said no one can adopt him. Reg says that Stan isn't trustworthy, and Calvin is curious about what's happening. Surprisingly, Stan is on the phone with Wagner and sounds angry because the coach sent some couples to the orphanage to check on Calvin. Wagner says Calvin's contract doesn't mention anything about not being adopted, but Stan insists he is Calvin's guardian. When Calvin walks into the office, he asks Stan why he lied to him about not being adoptable. Stan replies that all the people who want to see him are just interested in his money. Calvin says he wants to meet the couples to find out what they're like, and Stan says he will introduce him to some of the best choices. Soon after, Calvin meets the chosen couples, but they all seem unusual. It turns out that Stan hired them to make Calvin think twice about wanting to be adopted. After some time, Calvin goes to Tracy's house in the city. When he arrives, Tracy asks what's bothering him. Calvin says he's having a really bad day. He explains that his best friend is mad at him and that Stan gave him the worst parents ever. Tracy mentions that he struggles with geometry too, but he can help him. However, he needs to call Murph first to make sure everything is okay. After this, Calvin calls Murph and asks him to come to Tracy's house. Tracy also paints the walls with different triangle shapes to help him teach Calvin better. After some time, they mess around with the paint, and when Murph gets there, he joins in. The next day, the Knights win another game. Frank says good things about Tracy and Calvin for teaming up to help the team. He also mentions that if they win one more game, they'll go to the playoffs. The next day, Reg and Murph ask Calvin if he still hasn't found the right parents. Calvin says he hasn't done something, and Murph thinks it's probably because he is thinking about someone else. Calvin asks what he means, and Murph replies that Tracy can take him in. Calvin laughs and says that Tracy isn't really into families since he doesn't even talk to his dad anymore. Reg and Murph are surprised by this, and the kids wonder why someone would have a dad and not talk to him. The next day, Calvin brings Tracy's dad to his home to surprise him. When Tracy sees his dad, he looks angry and tells Calvin to leave and mind his own business. That night, the Knights lose their game, and Wagner is really upset because now they have to beat a tougher team to have a shot at the playoffs. He's also angry with Tracy and Calvin and tells them to sort out their issues since they didn't work well together. After Walker goes, Tracy tries to calm things down, but he sees that Calvin has already gone from the locker room. The next morning, Calvin goes back to the orphanage and tells his friends that he doesn't think he will ever find a home. Murph tells him not to say that just yet. While Calvin is confused about what's happening, a nice couple called Mr. and Mrs. Boyd says who he is to him. Since Calvin might be leaving the orphanage soon, Stan goes to talk to Ox. He asks if he really believes that Calvin's shoes help him perform so well. Ox says he is sure about it. After that, Stan goes into the orphanage to give Calvin a new pair of shoes. Calvin says he likes the old ones, but Stan talks him into changing them so the Boyds will like him better. Calvin agrees to help and gives the MJ sneakers to Murph so he can keep them safe. Later, after Calvin goes to the Boyd's house for dinner, Murph puts on the sneakers to see if they will help him play better. As he kicks a ball at the goal, he misses and thinks that the sneakers only help Calvin. At that moment, he sees a picture of his mom, but Ox and some bullies come into the room to grab it from him. Stan also arrives and burns a part of the picture to make Murph tell him where Calvin's sneakers are. Murph doesn't want to say anything at first, but because he doesn't want to lose the only picture he has of his mom, he finally tells them where to find the sneakers. After that, Stan takes the shoes and goes to see a money lender named Mr. Williams plans to borrow $100,000 to wager against the Knights in their upcoming game. Mr. Williams is surprised and asks why Stan is so sure. Stan replies that he thinks Calvin will not play well today. Meanwhile, Tracy keeps thinking about Calvin, and Janet sees this. Tracy thinks about how much fun he had with Calvin and decides to make up with his dad. At the same time, Calvin's dinner with the Boyds goes smoothly, and they decide to complete his adoption. The next day, Tracy spots Calvin in the locker room and tells him he has important news to share. Before Tracy can speak, the Boyds come into the locker room, and Calvin says they will be his new parents. Tracy is surprised but congratulates the Boyds, telling them they are lucky to have Calvin as their son. Don't we all know? When Calvin asks what he was going to say, Tracy replies that it wasn't important. Soon after, Reg and Murph tell Calvin that Stan has already taken his shoes. Even though the game is starting soon, Calvin leaves the stadium and goes back to the orphanage. When Wagner and the team see that Calvin is gone, they are surprised but still go out to play their biggest game of the season. Soon after, Calvin asks Murph, Reg, and a few other kids to tie Stan to a chair and make him tell them the code to the safe where he hid the sneakers. Stan won't say anything, and when Ox walks into the room, he almost helps Stan escape. But Calvin tells him that Stan doesn't care about any of them and that they need to stay united. Ox thinks about it and sees that Calvin is telling the truth about Stan not caring about them. Since he has the code to open the safe, he unlocks it and hands Calvin his sneakers. As the kids go to the stadium together, Stan gets out of his chair and calls Mr. Williams will send his men to find the kids so they can win their big bets against the Knights. Mr. Williams quickly does this, but Calvin still gets by the bad guys and arrives at the stadium, where he sees Stan waiting for him. When Stan tells him to stop playing and give up his sneakers, Calvin knocks him down with his scooter and says his game has just started. When Calvin arrives at the game, the Knights are already behind, and Wagner asks where he was. Calvin doesn't know what to say, and Wagner says he will sit on the bench because he just got there in the fourth quarter. Tracy stands up for Calvin and tells Wagner to let him play because he is important to the team's success. His teammates back him up, and since they believe they can still win, Wagner chooses to play Calvin. Surprisingly, Calvin helps the team catch up by scoring a lot of points. As they fall behind by just 1 point, one of Calvin's shoes gets wrecked, and he feels unhappy. Tracy sees that something is up with Calvin. When he asks what's wrong, Calvin explains that he can't play well anymore because his shoes are important for his talent. Tracy thinks Calvin is just kidding, but Calvin insists he's serious. Tracy tells him he has to be brave because they still have to win the game. After Wagner tells the team what to do for the last play, Calvin informs his teammates that no matter what happens, this will be his last game with them. His teammates are surprised. Calvin shares that he wants to be a regular kid again, and everyone feels happy for him. As the game goes on, Calvin has a hard time getting past one of the other team's best players, but Tracy encourages him to keep doing his best. After Calvin gets by the defender, he passes the ball to Tracy, who scores the points that help the Knights make it to the playoffs. Everyone is happy about this. When the players head to the locker room, Calvin feels sad because he might not see Tracy again. And Mrs. Boyd went into the locker room to congratulate him and told them to wait for him in the parking lot. After this, Calvin visits Wagner to say goodbye. Wagner tells him that he will be missed and that there will always be a spot for Calvin on the team. Calvin goes back to the court and thinks about everything that has happened in the last few weeks. After that, he leaves the Boyds in the parking lot and goes to the orphanage. When Murph sees him, he mentions that he didn't think Calvin would turn down the Boyds. Calvin says he also didn't see it coming, but something felt off to him. The next day, while Calvin is playing outside, Ox asks him what he likes most about being in the NBA. Calvin says it's room service. When Ox asks what that is, Calvin explains that it's a way to get free food at hotels. Ox looks surprised by this. As he walks away, Calvin hears Tracy ask him if room service was really the best part for him. Calvin seems surprised to see Tracy and asks why he is there. Tracy explains that he is with the team because the Knights will be helping the orphanage home. He also says to Calvin that he wants to make him his son. Calvin is really happy and gives Tracy a hug. Then he notices that Murph looks sad and asks Tracy if she can adopt his friend as well. Tracy says yes to this and Murph seems happy about it. The movie ends here. Please, my family, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.